I will start. So I'm Ashley Cabral. I'm the grief services coordinator for grief services at Hospice of St. Joseph Health, as also part of Providence Health. And I'm also our internship program coordinator.
And I am Jennifer Hu. I am the other grief services coordinator here at St. Joseph's Hospice, or Providence St. Joseph's Hospice. And in my capacity, I provide clinical supervision, weekly group supervision, and work alongside with Ashley to help keep our program running smoothly. So brief overview. So we're a part of Providence St. Joseph Health, which is a really large healthcare organization. Spans across a lot of the West Coast and a few other states. And our hospice roots in the community really began about 40 years ago as a small hospice. We've maintained a really consistent, strong reputation in providing some of the best hospice care. We're located out of Sonoma County. We have primary locations in Santa Rosa and Petaluma. And the position is based really out of either site. Currently, we offer virtual services, and these virtual offerings are likely going to continue virtually. And our philosophy is really that death and grief are normal parts of life. This time of life can be very much shadowed by fear, feelings of uncertainty, loneliness. And we believe in a team approach and providing very respectful and compassionate care to hospice families and to people in our community. All across the lifespan. We provide our services in both English and Spanish, and we serve a very broad population and people from very diverse backgrounds. And as we offer these services free of cost to anyone, regardless of their connection with hospice, we often service a large portion of people who have experienced a sudden and very traumatic loss as well.
Typical duties of the trainee in addition to kind of the direct clinical hours that they're going to be serving and kind of meeting with clients is there's kind of the typical charting that they would be doing, which would kind of include the conceptualization and discussing the work with peers, with their supervisor, with group, and with team. As this is a training program, we do, give a lot of support to this skill and really building, knowing how to do clinical writing, how to kind of make it professional and legal, and kind of following all of those guidelines. And we, at times, in addition, there is going to be care coordination. There'll be phone calls to clients, often also collaborating with other community providers can be a part of that. We do outreach calls to families after a death has occurred. So they'll also be and then monitoring and responding to email communication, kind of the fast-paced environment that we are a part of. And then many trainees will often take on different leadership roles, or they can take on leadership roles in planning special groups and events. So we have a number of different events throughout the year, including a yearly children's event. We have a Dia de los Muertos celebration. We also do a kind of annual tree lighting event. So they'll hold kind of different roles in that way. And then we also do child loss memorial. And then we have community crisis response that we also provide after a sudden death has occurred. And so often our trainees will have different parts of leadership in those roles. And we also really want to support trainees to develop something that they feel really passionate about and something that they can kind of create and facilitate. So we've had in the past trainees that will specialize in a certain type of loss or a certain population that they want to work with, and will help them kind of create and facilitate a group in that area.
Intakes are handled by our licensed clinicians who complete an initial screening and intake, and then they schedule a comprehensive assessment with one of our counselors. We train all of our counselors to provide a really full psychosocial assessment to assess and treat the various kinds of ways in which grief can be manifested, meaning taking a look at cognitive manifestations, emotional, relational, spiritual, and somatic. And then with the supervision support as well as team support, the counselor can develop and create a plan for treating the client, either treating them in-house with the services and resources that we have, providing referrals as needed, or working in conjunction with other providers out in the community. So we also have a weekly team meeting where cases are talked about and discussed, and referrals are then made to various programs as needed.
Typical caseload for trainees: every week, trainees can provide up to 10 direct hours of clinical service. Usually that will include one-to-one counseling, either with adults, children, teens. It may also be child or family units. There sometimes is parent-child units, siblings, couples, lots of different kind of family relational work. And they may also co-facilitate one group. We generally offer different types of groups that may include expressive arts groups, play therapy for children, grief groups for specific losses, and most of our groups are offered every other week. Counselors will generally have about 20 people on their caseload, and as it is a short-term model, that caseload is kind of always revolving and having kind of new people that they're bringing on quite a bit. And so they're really learning to manage a full caseload, right off the bat, and are part of a broad scope of services that we offer too, including peer support and other groups. So part of that is also kind of managing what's going to be the next step and what's going to be kind of the long-term support that may even be beyond the direct work that they're offering. So there is kind of this assessment and clinical management of that. I think that kind of captures the caseload that they offer.
I would say that the supervision that we offer is very multifaceted. So we want to offer a depth of learning and perspectives, and each intern counselor has a supervisor that's assigned to meet with them on an ongoing individual basis, who provides oversight on a day-to-day level. There's 1 hour of individual supervision that's provided each week, and then also group supervision that's provided weekly as well. The group supervision usually includes a group of trainees as well as associates. This is a place where we review cases, we discuss challenges, we share and exchange learnings and other things as well. We have a strong reputation and intent to provide ongoing support. And counselors are working with a team of other licensed and pre-licensed counselors, and they have an opportunity to learn from many different people.
The trainings that we offered is actually one of the highlights that I really appreciate about this program. And we do offer a pretty highly structured training program with, we try to have some flexibility as well, kind of interweave additional trainings as are needed. But the first 2 weeks of the program are pretty extensive training. We kind of all group together and kind of work as a cohort to learn. And so we're initially working on, just the very basic initial skills, theories of the program and of grief, and just general, therapeutic techniques. And the highlight of this time is actually being able to observe 3 to 4 licensed counselors providing psychosocial assessments and then discussing and providing the documentation in real time as a group. This year, we were actually really grateful to be able to record some of our sessions. And so we were able to then watch them as a group and then discuss them and really go over the clinical details, not only for charting, but also just all of the different factors of that assessment. And so, then there are additional trainings that we offer early on, in particular around psychosocial assessments, suicide and risk assessment and management, treatment goals for grief, traumatic grief, affect regulation, sleeping and eating, somatic and nonverbal interventions, child and teen grief, and a number of other things that we try to offer pretty early on in the training. And then throughout the year, we spread out ongoing trainings, kind of based a little bit more on, kind of the developmental needs of the group, as well as kind of just interests. And so some of those topics may include spirituality, group facilitation, expressive arts, child loss, substance use, DBT, play therapy, and really whatever else kind of is coming up at that point. And these trainings are usually offered by a licensed clinician, either one of our clinicians in-house or one of our community partners that we work closely with.
And openness and willingness to receive feedback and to learn are really key. A willingness to work with a very diverse population, kind of population that we serve here at Hospice. Collaboration and regular communication, effective communication. And then some key clinical attributes too, such as empathy, sensitivity, being present, listening to the needs of the client, drawing upon their experiences and understandings of others. And while it's not required, I think that prior experience in a healthcare setting or mental health care setting would also be really helpful too.
I think oftentimes trainees will come in, at the start with really worries about what it would be like to talk about death all of the time and to hold a full caseload of grief. And while that can be, initially something that does take some development, there is a lot of support for it. And pretty quickly people find that it's such meaningful work that can tend to, it just becomes kind of a normal part of the process. And something that you kind of find ways of getting support around that. And it's, I think what can be so meaningful about that as well is that people really drop in very quickly. There's a real depth of vulnerability that can show up, kind of creating this just really incredible therapeutic space that we're able to offer, and a lot of graciousness around that. I think in addition, it's important to kind of be processing your own grief and trauma, as a lot of that can come up if you're holding really intense stories. So I think that's something we do offer a lot of support around, and really encourage our counselors to get support around as well, as much as might be coming up for them. And to kind of have their own kind of personal responsibility in that process as well, to monitor their reactions and kind of seek support for that. From an administrative level, we are a fast-paced environment. We're part of a healthcare organization. And so while we do offer quite a lot of support around that, it is something I think to be aware of, that we do hold ourselves to a high clinical standard in all of our charting, our documentation, and kind of our administrative needs. And so kind of being able to manage and monitor that is an important part of this work. And I'd say there's definitely a wealth of enough clinical hours for folks. So sometimes it's actually also learning to set their own limits and create balance in their life. We do, I think, have a pretty strong encouragement of work-life balance, but I think that that is a part of the developmental learning process as well, is to learn how to do that and kind of set your limits, but also, get your hours and everything that you need to.
I would add that our intern groups form very strong bonds and relationships with each other. This really, I think, helps to foster safety as well as support in the learning process. They're willing to be vulnerable at times to access the support that's available. And that's really a reflection of the spirit and culture that's fostered within our organization, and transcends to our specific team.
And I would add as well that I think one of the things that we find is that a lot of our trainees want to continue with us for a second or third year. It's pretty often that we'll have people continue on. And that can be a really beautiful thing as well, to kind of create more of like a specialization, or maybe there's more specific focus. There's so much that encompasses the first year of learning, in particular if this is a first traineeship as well. And so being able to go on to that second year, having that offering, I think is something that can be a great benefit as well, and kind of continuing to develop the skills. And I'd say that overall as well, a lot of our trainees and associates that have come through our program have really found that even if they don't go on to provide specific grief work in their future careers, have found that these skills of knowing how to support people in grief and loss is highly valuable for future work environments, as well as just being able to support future clients with whatever might come up. Something that seems to be very highly desirable in multiple different kind of facets of the therapeutic work.